Hello and welcome to the Cesspool and welcome back to the 25 Days of Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. I truly hope it is a good one. And yes, we're back here on the floor. And we're not talking about video games, we're not even talking about cameras, but we are talking about something electronic. However, before I get into that, I would just like to, once again, throw out a little apology because, yes, there was no video yesterday. And this is now the second time this has happened. It was once last year, this year was twice, and it will stay twice. It will not happen a third time. I can pretty much assure that we're pretty damn close to Christmas now. And I want to hope, I don't really feel it, but I feel like I'm on the tail end of this sickness. That was pretty much what happened. I got very sleep deprived, along with, quite frankly, just work getting the best of me. This guy's not centered, and that was kind of bothering me. But yeah, it's been a long week. And unfortunately, that's pushed back making these. But this isn't a job. This is for fun. So, you know, I do them when I can. And, of course, I want to do the 25 days. We're going to do 25 videos. That's happening. You'll get another one right after this. But, yeah, I apologize for that, for anyone who was looking forward to it. Not that anyone was looking forward to me talking about freaking trains. But for the couple of people that still care, I'm going to talk about it. And because this is something that's been on my mind a lot recently. I cannot stop rambling to people about what I want to do in the future with model trains, because it's one of my longest hobbies. Even before video games. Kinda. No. I'm going to say no. I have been doing this for a long time now, and I think that my opinion on how you should go about doing this hobby has changed a lot. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. People evolve with how they care and how they want to go about doing hobbies. And I think model trains is one that I've probably evolved with the most as I've matured. Because, you know, and this is not trying to be like, oh, you got to do it the way that I'm going to talk about. No, I don't care. You can run your railroad however the hell you want. You know, it's your money. You're building it. It's up to you. You know, whatever. You don't have to be like, oh, I gotta get this Erie E8 and it has to be the 1956 spec with, you know, these details and this. You don't have to be a rivet counter. You don't have to do that. I don't even really do that. It's great. I like having, you know, specific details and all that fun stuff. But, you know, I like more the idea of getting a, like, image across. Like recreating something from history. It's a model, after all, right? Like, you're supposed to be modeling either something from your mind or something from, you know, history. It's supposed to be an image. And my approach nowadays, which I'll get into, is kind of a mix of both. But let's go over just briefly my kind of history with model trains, which I think a lot of people had, and how I've kind of grown to where I am now. So I've been doing this, for like 15 years. I'm old. I think my dad got me a train set for Christmas, I believe, when I was like 8. And it was a Bachmann starter set, you know, and he built a plywood table in our basement. And that was enough for me for a long time. You know, I'd get some more DC engines. They were mostly Bachmann. I didn't really care. You know, it was just a different train and more cars. And, you know, I got switch tracks or blah, blah, blah. You know, that's all I cared about. And that's all kids really care about. You know, they look cool. You know, you get more cars to run with them. Oh, you want a passenger train? You get a passenger car. Oh, you want a steam engine? Blah, blah, you know, you get that. You don't really care, like, oh, is it an E8? Oh, blah, blah, is it for the Erie Railroad? No, it's gotta be for the Erie Railroad. I can't do it. No, I don't want this Pennsylvania garbage. Like, no, you don't freaking care. You know, and maybe some kids do, but most kids. And what is marketed towards kids in model railroading absolutely is going towards, like, this just looks cool. This is fun. It's a toy. They're not even... You know, and they are models, don't get me wrong, and you can make them nice, and people who stick with, you know, older DC stuff, that's their thing, and that's fine, nothing wrong with it, but they are generally advertised towards kids, and nothing wrong with that. Nowadays, I moved on from that to being like, well, now I want more detail, I want sound, I want DCC, and that was kind of moving through middle school and the high school, so I get that. But I still stick with I want a steam engine with sound. Just got one, and it wasn't anything I particularly cared about. Oh, I want more detail. I just got like a higher quality model. My standards were rising, but what I actually wanted to do was not. I started building a more permanent layout in a basement. Actually putting down track and roadbed and everything. That didn't last forever, but at the time that was a big learning experience for me because that was my first time actually doing real track work. Before that, it was easy track. That's kind of what a lot of kids have. They have the plastic roadbed, and that's fine. Again, it does the job. A lot of people stick with it when they do temporary floor layouts. Right now, that's what I'm running because I don't have a permanent layout. So, you just put the easy track on the floor. It's the same stuff I have had since I was a kid, and well, it's not working too well these days, but it works. It does the job normally. My track is old and falling apart, but not really the point. So that kind of leads to now. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I've always wanted to do New York Central because that's just number one. I have a New York Central or a former New York Central line literally 5 minutes away from my house in that direction. Not that there's reference for that, but in that direction, kind of. So I'm like, I love the New York Central. I do, and I have a lot of New York Central models. However, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to just do, the New York Central and just like pick, I'm just going to do the water level route, blah, 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 or whatever. I don't want to just do that. I do want to integrate the New York Central into what I want to do. However, I have always had a real fascination and interest in Erie and the Erie Lackawanna. I have a lot of history. Obviously, being from New Jersey, you're riding NJ Transit. A majority of those lines, other than the Northeast Corridor, are Erie Lackawanna or former Erie or former Lackawanna, whatever. For me, it's always been mostly Erie stuff, but Lackawanna as well. And obviously, I've gone into Hoboken Terminal a million times over now, and that's always been the railroad that has had the most personal connection with me because I've been exposed to it the most. At least its historical right-of-ways, structures, all that kind of stuff. And even today, New Jersey Transit has their, Erie Heritage Unit. They have their Erie Lackawanna Heritage Unit. Obviously, Hoboken Station is still completely branded as Erie Lackawanna, which is awesome, of course. Which leads me to this E8, because this E8, I picked it up at a train show just a couple months ago from the recording of this video. And quite frankly, this thing really sent me down the rabbit hole of figuring out what the hell I want to do. So what do I want to do personally, and how can that help someone figure out how they want to run their railroad, or go about, finding the balance between historical, but also getting to run what you want. Because I don't want to strictly run Erie Lackawanna, or just Erie, or just Lackawanna, or it has to be between the years of 1956 and 1958, and it has to be between these two mileposts, and everything needs to be specific. I'm going to do plenty of No, I don't care that much. But I figured out what railroad I want to do. Primarily focusing on the Erie Lackawanna in 1960, right when they were merging. That gives you Erie power, Lackawanna power, and very early EL patched units or repaints. So then along with that, the line that I decided to do was the Northern Branch, which was formerly the Northern Railroad of New Jersey, which actually ended at the Erie Railroad's original terminus, which was Piermont, although technically it was extended to Nyack, New York. However, the Northern Branch now is almost completely out of service line, but it has a lot of interesting history, and a lot of artifacts from it still exist. And I have always found it very fascinating. I've driven over those tracks a million times. Tracks are still there, but it's kind of led me to being like, okay, I think I want to do this. I'm going to model the Northern Branch, but it's going to be a fictionalized version of the Northern Branch, so that's kind of it. You get your blueprint. Okay, I want to do the Erie's Northern Branch. I want it to be around 1960 because I want it to be right when the Erie Lackawanna was beginning to form and repaint engines, but there's still going to be older units from the Erie and the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. So there you go. Okay, that gives me a lot of room to play. And then you say, well, but I like the New York Central. I have a lot of New York Central equipment. I don't want to just get rid of that or not use it on my future permanent layout. Well, okay, then how are we going to integrate that? Well, then we're going to create a little bit of alternate history, and that's where you have the fun with it. You have a blueprint in reality, and then you kind of play with it, and you're like, okay, well, how can I integrate these other things that I like where it's realistic? Now, the Northern Branch did have a connection with the West Shore Railroad, which was a New York Central division. So, in this alternate timeline, in the mid-1950s, a hurricane came in through northern New Jersey and New York State and southern New York State, which this really did happen. I believe it was Hurricane Diane. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can do the research if you care. And in this alternate history, that washed out a portion of the West Shore line for the New York Central. And because this is the late 50s, now 1960, now railroads didn't have a ton of money, and that line was not profitable enough for them in this alternate history. That the freight sector of the West Shore Railroad was very profitable. But in this alternate history, they found it more realistic to use the secondary Northern Branch, make a deal with the Erie-Lackawanna to run services on that line instead of rebuilding the washed out portion of the West Shore Railroad, which leads New York Central equipment to be running on the Northern Branch in this particular time period because of this event that happened. And it's based in reality, but obviously it's alternate history. But that's now integrating something that I also wanted, which was New York Central stuff. Okay. But I want to do one more thing. Let's do one more thing, and this is now kind of stretching it, but it's technically history. Now, the New York, Ontario, and Western Railroad, they had trackage rights over the West Shore Railroad leading into Weehawken Terminal in Jersey City, or Weehawken, that area, which would then transfer ferries into Manhattan. Now, the O&W died in the late 50s. However, we're going to change that a little bit and say that they didn't file for bankruptcy, but they filed for bankruptcy protection. The government actually gave them a grant to continue services, however, very, very limited. But the main line is still active, and the Ontario and Western still exists. So, this results in O&W equipment also running on the Northern Branch because they had the deal with the New York Central, and that would have transferred over to the New York Central's deal with the Erie-Lackawanna. So there you go. That's 4 railroads, and not to mention any foreign power that I just want, because at the end of the day, I can do whatever I want. I could run, Pennsylvania Railroad stuff on it if I really wanted to. I have a couple of PRR things that I just like. I won't go out of my way to buy anymore, but they're cool. And if I want to run them on my damn railroad, I can do that because it's mine. But what I want to model, I now have a plan for. I've built out what stations I want, what towns I want to integrate, how far I want it to go, what interchange. Obviously, there'll be an interchange with the West Shore Railroad because that's going to be where the New York Central hops on. So, yeah, that's kind of how I went about getting a compromise between history, alternate history, and just kind of pure, what if. That, in my opinion, is the best way to go about integrating all these different elements of the model railroad community. People who are like hyper-specific, people who are totally fantasy, and, then there's the middle. And I feel like I've kind of centered down the middle. Does that mean you have to do that? No. It doesn't really matter. But in my opinion, if you're in a world where you're like, well, I have a bunch of stuff, I don't really know what I want to do, I don't have a vision, kind of look at history, and then see what you can do to make it your own. That's kind of what I've done here, and to be completely honest, now I'm like in on, getting correct Erie equipment, getting correct Lackawanna equipment, and I'm focused. I'm focused on what I want. I'm streamlining what I look for at train shows and online, on eBay, anything like that. It makes it way, way easier to, focus in on what you want to buy. What you want to buy, what you want to model. For me right now, it's obviously getting Erie equipment because it was originally an Erie branch before the Northern Branch was an Erie branch before the Lackawanna merger. So most of the equipment there is still going to be Erie. There will be Lackawanna equipment as well, of course, but it will mostly be Erie. So I'm looking into Erie passenger cars, Erie freight cars, Erie locomotives, obviously. This is my first Erie locomotive, this Rapido E8, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous engine. You know, I can't not talk about it. It's really, really pretty. And quite frankly, you know, I'm to the point where I want to do it right. You know, I don't want to just get like, oh, generic Erie railroad coaches. No, I want the right one. So I'm going ahead and now I'm building kits of Erie Stillwell commuter cars because that's what would have ran on the railroad. You know, you kind of have to pick, do you care about that? Maybe you don't. And that's fine. You can do whatever the hell you want. But for me, I think it's really cool to have, you know, the correct equipment to a degree. You know, my Erie Stillwell coaches aren't going to be perfect. They're kits. No one makes them other than brass. So are they going to be perfect? No. But they're going to be more than good enough for me to feel satisfied. Everything is about how you feel satisfied with what you're doing. And for me, I never really was. And I've kind of found the niche because I'm someone who likes things to be historically accurate. However, on the other hand, I also like having fun and you know, being creative with how I go about running this future railroad. And I would like to make videos about it when it starts happening. When I'm building the Erie Stillwell coaches, I might do videos about them. But yeah, that's kind of all I actually have to say about my current situation with model railroading. It's kind of been my love-hate hobby for a long time. It's a very expensive hobby, but it's a very, very fun and rewarding one. Especially, I feel like now that I have a vision of what I want to do. Finding the vision of what you want to do, finding the inspiration is the most important thing, or else you're going to be flailing around just buying random stuff like I was just because you can, and you're like, I don't know, I kind of like the Reading, I kind of like UP, oh, I don't know, I kind of like BN, whatever. That shouldn't be the way you go about this. You could do that for a while to figure out what you want, but you can't do that forever. At least unless you have like unlimited money. You know, you gotta focus on something, whether it's, you know, kind of what I'm doing, which is a bunch of different railroads that under circumstances are running on one line, but there's historical context to it, or, you know, you're just, I'm making a fictional railroad. I've come up with locomotives it's gonna have, you know, this is gonna be the year that it's set, blah, blah, blah. If you want to do that, that's great. Or if you're just someone who doesn't care and, you know, I want to run my Erie locomotive with my frickin' Missouri Pacific engine, you know, go ahead. But my opinion is that you got to find the balance of everything, at least to budget this hobby realistically. And everybody has different opinions on this. That's just my take. Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody so much for watching. Literally just listening to me ramble about model trains for almost 20 minutes. But more talk about history and how my opinion on the hobby has changed a lot. And I'd like to thank everybody so much for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I hope maybe you have a train running under your tree this year. I don't know when the next video will be, except I do. It's right after this one, and I will see you guys then.